We decided to move. Move. I was perplexed by the sudden announcement from Joseph. We've been looking for a while now. You know, this house is in a good location, but it's old, right? It's too embarrassing to invite friends over. Plus, everyone feels like they have to walk on eggshells because of Mia. The eldest son and his wife speak their mind freely. Apparently, they're moving to a high-rise apartment. When I ask where they're moving to, Lily responds with a sarcastic smile. We don't give out our address to strangers. Her words are like a slap in the face. After all, I don't want anything to do with them, but regardless of Lily, Joseph is my son, and Matthew is my husband. When I ask what they mean by strangers, Joseph begins. Dad's planning to divorce Mom. Divorce? Yeah, Dad's got his eye on some woman. She's average-looking but younger and nicer than Mom. I knew I was being taken advantage of by Matthew and Joseph for household chores, but I never imagined it was to this extent. My fists clench in anger. I can feel my blood boiling. I want them out of my life, now. Then it's divorce for the part-time husband. At my words, Lily covers her mouth and Matthew freezes. Old woman talking in her sleep. Joseph seems clueless about the situation. Let them regret their decision later. Crying and apologizing won't change a thing. I will never forgive them. I am Mia, 54 years old. I've been married to Matthew for almost 30 years now. Matthew is unreliable and tends to leave things to others, but he's broad-minded and respects what I want to do. That's why I decided to marry him. A few years after our marriage, our eldest son, Joseph, was born. Matthew was overjoyed when Joseph was born. Although child-rearing was left up to me, I hoped that becoming a dad would make him a bit more reliable. For a while after the birth, I harbored this faint hope. But Matthew never changed. Hey, he's crying. Every time Joseph cried, Matthew would call me as if it were someone else's problem. In the beginning, I tried to persuade Matthew patiently. Look, Joseph seems so happy when you hold him. You're a great dad. I praised him, even if it was just for holding Joseph a few times a day. I hoped it would boost his confidence as a dad. But it didn't work out as I had hoped. I'm not cut out for this. Mia's better at it. Matthew pushed both household and child-rearing duties onto me. I'm going back to work. Can't you help out a bit? I can't do it all by myself. I protested several times, but Matthew always responded as if it were a given. I trust you, Mia. I'm doing my job, too. I'm bearing with it even though it's tough. Household and child-rearing should be done by whoever is better at it. Matthew always had a way of shirking responsibility and leaving everything to me. It's not that I'm naturally good at it. I just got better with practice. Despite trying everything, Matthew never changed. Joseph grew up without issue, got a job, and moved out. At that time, I felt more relief than loneliness. I was relieved that I now had one less person to take care of. Thankfully, my career was also going well. Matthew still didn't do any housework, but by then, I had grown accustomed to it. Years later, Matthew had some trouble at work, but we were living our lives together, just the two of us. It was relatively peaceful, I think. Then one day, out of the blue, I'm getting married. Joseph says. Joseph was 24 at the time of his marriage. It felt a bit early, but since he was serious about his work, we were fully in celebration mode. When Joseph first brought his fiancée, Lily, to meet us, we were thrilled. Welcome. We're so happy. Let's get along well from now on. Yes, please take care of me. Lily was a clear and bright good girl. Joseph's workplace and apartment were far from our house, so we wouldn't meet often, but I hoped we could get along well when we did. I was the only one getting carried away. It was Joseph's words that snapped me back to reality. We're going to live here together. It sounded more like a decision than a consultation, and I was taken aback. Living here? Why? You're newlyweds. What about work? I quit my job. My boss was a jerk. So, I'm planning to look for something around here. There must be plenty of opportunities. I was more panicked by his carefree attitude than anything else. Is Lily okay with this? Living with your mother-in-law right after getting married is something I'd definitely avoid. Plus, having an unemployed husband suddenly must be unsettling. Worried, I asked, but Lily's calm and unexpected response came back. I'm not good at housework, so this works out for me. It felt like she had beaten me to the punch. This was as good as declaring she wouldn't do any housework. I have my own circumstances. I can't take on everything. For both our sakes, it would be better to reconsider living together. I protested to my eldest son and his wife multiple times, but they were set on moving in, and so we ended up living together. Living together was, in a way, exactly as I had imagined. First, a little after they moved in, Joseph somehow landed a job. The salary wasn't high, but it was close to our house. Soon after, Lily also started working part-time. With both of them securing some income, I felt relieved, but there was a problem. As expected, I was left to handle all the household chores alone. Cooking, laundry, cleaning, shopping, the list is endless. I leave the house earliest in the morning and return the latest. Yet, no one else seems to lift a finger. Mom, I'm hungry. What's for dinner? Joseph asks while fiddling with his phone. Is tonight's menu something quick? Lily adds, flipping through TV channels. Just after returning home from overtime, this couple had the nerve to say such things to me. I guess I was being taken for granted. After all, Lily is part-time and has more time at home and more free time than me. She usually returns home before evening. At the very least, I wish she'd take care of preparing dinner. It was hard to say, but I decided to speak up. For Matthew and me, we'll manage on our own. Could you at least prepare your own meals? Lily frowned and looked at me as if I were speaking another language. Then, she said something unbelievable. Why do I have to do it? For a moment, I was taken aback. Why should someone need a reason to cook their own food? Confused, I stated the obvious. Well, because you get home earlier. Lily seemed dissatisfied, glaring at me with a look of disbelief. Just because I get home early doesn't mean I'm not tired. Why would you say something so terrible to me, just resting after coming home? It felt like talking to an alien. I wanted to throw her words right back at her. In fact, I did. That's funny, because I'm tired too. Lily remained unimpressed, tilting her head. So what? Excuse me? Even if you're tired, isn't it a mom's job to push through for her kids? Why are you pushing that responsibility onto me? Such nonsense. What age kids are we talking about? I'm not asking her to cook for someone else's children. I'm asking for Lily and her husband, Joseph, to prepare their own meals. If Joseph were home earlier, I'd ask him. But Lily is overwhelmingly more available. I never thought she'd refuse to cook for herself and her husband. Maybe I spoiled them too much. Reflecting on this, I decided to be a bit stricter than before. Afterwards, I kept reminding Lily and Joseph to do household chores, not just cooking, but they showed no signs of change. My problem is acting whenever there's something to be done. Maybe it's my personality, but I can't just leave things be. Thanks to that, I'm pushing my no longer young body to its limits, juggling work and household chores. At this rate, I might collapse someday. Desperate, I even consulted Matthew. I'm not involved. Good luck. But as expected, no one was willing to change, leaving me no choice but to do everything myself. One day, fed up with the daily grind, I came home from work to find the room slightly tidier than usual. Looking closer, I noticed the absence of my eldest son and his wife's clothes and bags that usually littered the floor. How unusual. Had Joseph or Lily cleaned up? Half surprised, half delighted, I opened the living room door to find Joseph standing right in front of me. Wow, you startled me. I'm home. Without even a welcome back, Joseph immediately told me. We've decided to move out. Move out? As I stood there bewildered, Lily appeared with a smug smile beside Joseph. The two exchanged a look and laughed. It was an unpleasant feeling. We've been looking for a while now. You know, this house is in a good location, but it's old, right? It's too embarrassing to have friends over. Plus, everyone feels awkward around Mia. What do you mean by that? After all, they were the ones who moved in without asking us. I had opposed it numerous times. Once we started living together, they didn't contribute to the living expenses or do any housework. After all their freewheeling, they have the nerve to complain about the house? I was furious. I had a lot I wanted to say, but I tried not to get emotional. Move out if you want. I couldn't be happier. But I won't tolerate you disrespecting this house. Apologize. This house was originally my family home, filled with memories of my parents. It might be old, but that doesn't give them the right to be embarrassed by it. Lily, half laughing as if my anger was amusing, said, No way, we're not mocking it. Just stating facts. Wow, Mia, your paranoia is extreme. Isn't it hard living like that? I felt like I was about to explode with anger. Why does she provoke me so? The way you're speaking is the mockery. Oh, scary. Lily feigned fear and hid behind Joseph. Looking at Joseph, he sighed as if exasperated. My anger grew, but I clenched my teeth to endure. It's because you're like this that we decided to move. Always nagging and irritated. I couldn't let that go. Am I to blame? It's because you leave everything to others no matter how many times you're told. You never clean up after yourselves and always make unreasonable demands. It's only natural to get irritated under such circumstances. I'm not your housekeeper, but your mom, right? A mom is supposed to take care of her kids, it's her duty. Lily said something similar before. Do you even realize how old you are? Acting entitled when you're fully grown adults. My voice involuntarily rose. I couldn't stand their entitlement, acting like they had rights because they were children. Oh, scary. Going through menopause, huh? Well, whatever. Anyway, we're moving to a high-rise apartment. Somewhere you could never afford to live in your whole life. Joseph looked smug. But I had a pressing question. A high-rise apartment? For the past few months, the couple hadn't been paying living expenses. They could have saved that money. However, Lily and Joseph weren't high earners. It seemed unlikely they could afford a high-rise apartment in just a few months. Where did you get such money? As if he had been waiting for my question, Joseph proudly responded. From Dad. Matthew? Yeah. We're planning to get support from Dad. The three of us, me, Lily, and Dad, will live there. I couldn't keep up with the developments, and before I could interject, Joseph happily continued. When we asked Dad, he agreed right away. It's a shame after so many years together. He prefers his young son and daughter-in-law over an old woman. This was honestly a shock. Nearly 30 years of marriage with Matthew. And I thought we had been getting along well until Joseph was born. Since then, we had gradually drifted apart, and recently, our conversations had dwindled. I never expected them to plan on leaving with the eldest son and his wife without telling me. What will you do? Try to stop Dad? Well, I don't think you stand a chance. Seeing Joseph's cheerful voice and face, something inside me snapped. I had endured because they were family. I accepted the unreasonable, albeit grudgingly. Maybe I had hoped that if I kept pointing it out, they would change someday. I spoiled my child too much. He will never change. And Matthew, who, despite being dad, dumped all responsibility for Joseph on me. I realized expecting anything from him was futile. When are you moving? Actually, we've already moved everything. The new appliances and furniture are all set up. It seems the plan had progressed without my knowledge. Is that so? You mentioned an apartment, but where are you moving to? The apartment is... Stop! Lily, with a high-pitched voice, cut off Joseph's attempt to reveal the address. Joseph, you shouldn't. We're going to be strangers to Mia from now on. Lily then turned to me, stating clearly. We won't be giving out our address to strangers. What do you mean? While I don't want anything to do with them, Lily aside, Joseph is my child, and Matthew is my husband. Seeing my confused expression, Lily showed her biggest smile yet. Joseph, why don't you tell her? Prompted by Lily, Joseph began. Dad says he wants to divorce you. Divorce? Yeah. Dad's found someone else. She's average-looking but younger and nicer than you. He's completely smitten and doing all he can for her. Thinking about it, divorce makes more sense than separation. Especially if there's another woman involved. I was aware I was being taken advantage of by Matthew and Joseph for household chores, but I never imagined the extent of the insult. My fists clenched in anger. I could feel my blood boiling. I wanted them out immediately. At that moment, the living room door opened, and Matthew appeared with a puzzled look. Seemingly just returned home. What's with this heavy atmosphere? What happened? Looking back and forth between me and Joseph, Joseph cheerfully responded. Welcome back, Dad. Just telling Mom everything. Matthew looked away awkwardly when our eyes met. Unlike Joseph, who seemed gleeful without any doubts. Matthew appeared somewhat guilty. Or is there another reason? Moving out, I hear? And you want a divorce? Yeah, Joseph and them. They say it's for the best for both of us. Huh. I don't have any man in mind, though. Well, that's... Despite talking freely behind my back, Matthew's attitude changes in front of me. His indecisive, people-pleasing nature will probably never change. I wanted to throw more sarcasm his way, but there was something more important to do first. With things as they are, we need to proceed with their plan before they change their minds. So, you're moving out, right? Then let's get the divorce papers sorted out today. No, that's... Right. Let's do that, Matthew. Yes, let's get the bothersome stuff out of the way quickly. Matthew seemed hesitant, but urged by the eldest son and his wife, we both filled out the divorce application and headed to the city hall together. I intended to go alone, but... We can't have you just pretending to submit it, said Joseph, so we all went together. Holding the divorce application in my hand. Submitting this means divorce. It's a relief yet a complex feeling, considering the past 30 years. Matthew was silent, his expression unreadable. Only the eldest son and his wife looked refreshingly happy. So we're strangers now. Thanks for everything up to now. Even though it hasn't been submitted yet, Joseph exclaimed cheerily. Even after divorce, Joseph is still my child. Are you okay with cutting ties like this? Yeah, of course. We wouldn't want to bother you with care or anything later. I was astounded by his words. No matter how much trouble I might face in the future, I would never rely on those who've caused me such humiliation. It's outrageous. Finally, at the after-hours service window, I turned to Matthew one last time. I'm going to submit it now. Ah, yes. Disgusted and irritated by Matthew's shaken demeanor, I handed the divorce application to the clerk. From this moment on, we would be strangers. I took a deep breath and said, "Then, it's divorce from the part-time husband." I heard a stir from the eldest son and his wife behind me, but I didn't look back. The clerk quickly reviewed the application and accepted it. If there are any issues, they'll contact us later. I think it'll probably be fine though. Well, I have places to be. As I was about to part ways with Matthew and the eldest son and his wife, Lily grabbed my arm. Mia, what did you mean by what you said earlier? Lily asked with a strained smile. Understandable after hearing such things. While understanding her feelings, I pretended not to know what she was talking about. Oh, Lily. Calling me Mia as if we're still familiar. We're strangers now, right? So, what about earlier? I said coldly, and Lily looked at me tentatively. A rare look of uncertainty on her face. Her expression made it clear, even without confirmation, that she had heard my earlier words. She just didn't want to believe it and came to double-check. They would realize their mistake and surely regret it later. Thinking this gave me a slight sense of relief, and my cheeks relaxed into a smile. So, about that part-time thing? Lily stammered, and I responded with a beaming smile. Oh, Matthew? I've kept it a secret, but he's been working part-time at a grocery store. Admirable, isn't it? Matthew, standing behind Lily, froze with wide eyes. No way. And Lily muttered in disbelief. Naturally, nobody would expect Matthew, who left the house every morning, to be working part-time. In reality, he spent his mornings walking or at the job center, only working part-time from the afternoon to evening. Lily, shocked and despairing, and Matthew, whose world had just come crashing down, were in stark contrast to Joseph, who was casually laughing. Old woman talking nonsense. He must think I'm lying. Casually insulting me. Part-time, Dad? No way. Oh, but it's true. Isn't it, Matthew? Since Matthew retired last year, he had been reluctant to work and had been unemployed for a long time. I convinced him to start the part-time job about half a year ago. The eldest son and his wife, having moved in later, were unaware of this. Matthew's pride kept it a secret until they found out. Well, yeah. Really? You can't be serious? Sweating, Matthew nods. Seeing this, it seems they finally understand the situation. The eldest son and his wife turn pale and look down. They should regret only after facing reality. I can't even feel sympathetic anymore. These people looked down on me after using me and tried to sever ties. I don't care what happens to them or if they face hardships. As I was about to leave silently, Joseph called out to stop me. So, how have you been managing all this time? How could you afford living expenses for several months? You're the one who didn't contribute to the living expenses, and now you say this? I'm so astounded I can't immediately find words. I managed to say, I've been earning the money. Joseph looks incredulous, blinking in disbelief. What? Impossible. There's no way Mom could support a household of 4 on her own. Do you know that I've been working from morning to night? How can you say it's impossible? But Mom's a woman, and even if she's a full-time employee, her income would be limited, right? What? You're earning that much? Yes. Since becoming an executive, I've been receiving a considerable amount as executive compensation. Executive? Joseph looks around, unable to believe. It must be hard for him to accept that I, whom he looked down upon, was an executive. Relying on Dad, who turned out to be working part-time, they underestimated Mom, who actually had a high income. If only you had told us. Didn't Dad know? Yes. You and your father always rely on others too quickly. That's why I didn't say anything. I see. But this is a relief. What is? Joseph pats my shoulder with a smile. Dad can go back to that house, and Mom can come to our apartment. What? Such a convenient narrative. Now that they know I have money, they abandon Dad and try to leech off Mom? Thinking this is my child makes me dizzy with shame and anger. How could you think that's possible? Plus, I just confirmed with you, didn't I? We're okay being strangers from now on, right? That is. But then, who's going to pay? Not just the apartment, but we've bought all the appliances and furniture on loans. Joseph looks at me, pleading with a trembling voice. How long do you plan to be a child? Take care of your own mess. If you're determined, you can make it work. For instance, if Lily worked more, even that would increase the income. Glancing sideways, Lily looks shocked and trembles. Her face turns pale. No way. Joseph collapses to his knees, finally understanding his situation. Next to him, Lily also crouches down, but then seems to have an idea. Right, the severance pay. Her eyes sparkling, Lily tells Joseph. Matthew quit just a few months ago, right? Then, he must have received severance pay? Joseph realizes upon hearing Lily's words. Indeed, that makes sense. With Dad's years of service, he should have received a decent amount. Right? If they get divorced, all that money would be Matthew's, right? That's a relief. That's right. It's Dad's, our money. The eldest son and his wife are elated. Do they think the world revolves around them? Usually, income after marriage is considered marital property, so it would be subject to distribution of property. Probably. What? What are you talking about? It's Dad's money. It's terrible. How greedy can you be? We're already divorced, right? Strangers. And yet, you talk about shared property and taking the money? The eldest son and his wife are indignant, as if it's unthinkable. They never reflect on themselves, but freely express their opinions. I've grown increasingly irritated dealing with them. Taking a deep breath to calm myself, I said clearly. Most of the severance pay is already gone. What? Why? Matthew only worked at his last company for a few years. There wasn't much severance pay to begin with. Matthew frequently changed jobs due to various reasons, such as the work being too hard or poor relationships with colleagues. In short, he couldn't stick with anything long-term. Like father, like son. Do you have any other savings? Even Mom's savings would be subject to distribution of property, right? Your freeloading these past few months has significantly drained it. Plus, depending on the situation, Matthew might even claim compensation. Surprised to be suddenly mentioned, Matthew cautiously opens his mouth. Compensation? Why? You were supporting a younger woman, weren't you? If there was infidelity, that's considered cheating. Even if not, it could still disadvantage you in a divorce. And if you dipped into the savings, you'll have to repay that. Matthew is trembling. Upon closer inspection, his eyes are slightly teary. It seems certain he's guilty of something. So, Dad is almost broke. It seems so. The eldest son and his wife exchange glances while trembling, then Joseph suddenly grabs Matthew by the chest. It's your fault. How could you deceive us? Pretending to live with us without a penny to your name. Matthew brushes off Joseph's hand. Quiet! You are the ones who invited me. Let's live together, enjoy a luxurious life in the apartment. I just agreed. Who would want to live with a penniless old man? Now, what are we supposed to do about the apartment payments? An ugly dispute between parent and child had begun. Both were relying on each other's money, leading to this misunderstanding. It's absurd. Well, I have nothing to do with this. I'll contact you through a lawyer again. As I waved my hand, Lily approached me with a desperate look. You can't be serious? You're just going to leave it like this? They are Mia's ex-husband and son. Don't make me say it again. We're strangers now. Don't call me Mia. But you were the ones who said it first, remember? We're strangers. Don't worry. I won't even bother remembering your address. We're strangers, after all. I thought I heard Lily shouting wait, but assuming it was my imagination, I left. Although proving the affair was difficult, Matthew's mismanagement of funds was discovered, and the remaining savings became mine. The eldest son and his wife couldn't afford the apartment payments and soon moved to a cheaper apartment. Not only was the move costly, but it seems the furniture and appliances were quite expensive, and now they're struggling with monthly payments. Lily has been trying hard by increasing her part-time work, but it's not enough, and she's considering working at a club. Furthermore, the couple has been fighting constantly since then, and divorce seems likely. As for Matthew, the young woman he was courting married someone else easily. After all I did for her. He confronted the girl, which led to the police being called and a big fuss. He must have learned his lesson because he then contacted me, seeking reconciliation. Only Mia really understands me. Drunk on his delusions, he begged. So I simply replied, no, I don't want to understand. And blocked his number. He can delude himself all he wants, but I wish he wouldn't involve me. The biggest reason I married Matthew was because he let me be free. But after 30 years, it wasn't freedom at all. He was only fine as long as he wasn't disadvantaged. I guess that's why he always refused to get involved in any trouble, including parenting. He didn't want to disrupt his own routine. There's one thing I'm thankful to Matthew and Joseph for. Their actions made me endure a lot of inconvenience and discomfort. Thanks to that, now that I'm alone, I feel incredibly liberated and free. I never want to see them again, but I'm proud of how I handled that time and believe I've grown from it. From now on, I want to take care of myself and live the rest of my life doing what I want, as long as I don't bother anyone. Your land is now my land. I already requested the construction. What? But that land is... My surprise was cut short as my mother-in-law Madison, with her shrill voice, interrupted me. A wife who talks back to her husband is unwanted. All you need to say is understood and keep it at that. Facing Madison's triumphant expression, I was at a loss for words. That land had already been leased to a corporation, with plans for an apartment building underway. The rent for the land was supposed to be deposited next month. I had made sure to inform Kevin about this. Madison, about that land. You just need to keep quiet. Understood? Every time I tried to tell the truth, Madison would shout over me. Finally, my anger erupted. Understood. While looking at my in-laws and husband smiling with satisfaction, I cursed them in my mind. Just wait and see. I can't wait to see you come begging. My name is Grace. I'm a 45-year-old housewife. Using my experience from studying abroad for 2 years during college, I've been a teacher at a German language school for adults and have worked there for 23 years now. Interacting with many students has been very fulfilling. My husband, Kevin, is also 45. He joined as a student at the German language school, which is how we met. Of course, I had no intention of getting involved with a student, so I rejected all the times he asked me out on a date during his enrollment, but Kevin persisted even after leaving the school, and, eventually, I was won over and we started dating. Kevin was very gentlemanly during our dates, and our relationship progressed smoothly. After dating for about 2 years, I accepted his proposal, and we got married when I was around 30. However, as soon as we got married, Kevin's attitude changed 180 degrees, as if to show he didn't value what he had obtained, turning into a classic henpecked husband. At first, we fought often, but I didn't have the energy or willpower to argue every day, so I mostly gave in, and that became the norm. Kevin has a younger sister, Mia, 5 years his junior, who seemed to keep her distance from the family home. My first impression during our greeting was that she was a straightforward woman, but according to Kevin, she was a stubborn and spoiled person for a woman. Thus, my interactions with Mia were minimal, and even after several years of marriage, we only saw each other possibly during Christmas. 10 years into our marriage, at the age of 40, Kevin and I still hadn't had children. I had gone through examinations at a gynecologist at the in-laws' insistence, but there was nothing wrong with me. However, as soon as I reported this, Kevin became furious. Are you trying to say it's my fault? No, that's not what I mean. I tried to clarify, but Kevin wouldn't listen and threw the remote control against the wall beside me. Don't you get cocky with me. I'm never going to the doctor's. It's obviously your fault. Change the clinic. Don't ever go back there again. Got it? Kevin then stormed out of the house, taking only his wallet and mobile phone. I picked up the broken remote, tears streaming down my face. This wasn't the marriage I had dreamed of, but still, I chose not to divorce, perhaps because of the fond memories I had with the kind Kevin. Eventually, at 43, the in-laws said that having a child at my age would look bad, and I gave up on the idea of having children. Even when I told Kevin, he didn't seem to care, making me realize I was the only one bothered by it. Kevin and I live about a 5-minute walk from the in-laws' house, and they visit our home about 3 times a week. Honestly, I'm not fond of the in-laws. My mother-in-law Madison constantly makes backhanded comments, and father-in-law John always talks about my appearance and our sex life. Like someone important once said, as you get older, your eggs deteriorate or something. I'm not saying Grace's eggs have deteriorated. But after 40, well, if anything happens, it would be a problem for us too, right? It's fine, isn't it? Even if they have deteriorated, Grace's body has something appealing about it, so Kevin, you still enjoy it, right? Oh, stop it, John. No one would feel good being around such vulgar conversations. I served coffee in silence, hoping the in-laws would leave soon. Look, I had Kevin when I was 20 and Mia at 25. Oh, not that being young is everything, but recovery after childbirth is definitely quicker when you're younger, right? You do look very young. No way. I mean, compared to the moms of Kevin's classmates, I might be on the younger side. I forced a smile at Madison, who seemed utterly pleased with herself for just being mentioned. Madison took pride in having had Kevin young and liked to make a point of being younger than others around her. And if someone didn't agree or play along, she'd treat them coldly, as if they were in the wrong. So, every time we met, I had to play along with Madison's reckless self-promotion. Honestly, Madison's appearance isn't that great. She's of average height and build, with natural curly hair, just a typical grandmother you'd find anywhere. She looks older than she is, and if someone guessed she was 70, it would be believable. Yet, she seems unaware, genuinely believing she's a hidden gem, almost a witch of beauty. Well, it's sad we won't see cute grandchildren, but it's better than having useless ones added. Yeah, if we don't have kids, they'd probably take care of us instead. The living room, filled with crude words, felt incredibly uncomfortable despite being my own home. And the in-laws would leave after saying whatever they wanted to say, feeling satisfied. Then one day, I got a call from Dad. It was about my paternal grandfather's passing and that I was included in the will. Dad's family was considered one of the notable families in the area. As the youngest with 5 older siblings, Dad didn't inherit much and lived doing what he wanted. So, our family wasn't particularly wealthy. However, being the only grandchild, my grandfather left me a piece of land. The inheritance included the land and some cash for expenses related to inheriting it. Even after paying inheritance tax, the amount was more than enough to live comfortably, making me wonder if it was all a dream. But the land was too large to build a house on, and I wasn't confident about using it wisely. Dad suggested renting it out to a company interested in building an apartment. Just the land rent would allow me to live freely without worrying about management. Since it wasn't expected to be inherited and no one in the family was particularly attached to it, the decision to lease it out was made quickly. I informed Kevin about this. He seemed to have started to think about something, but only replied one word. Understood. And then went back to reading his book alone. I thought that was the end of the discussion, but it turned out Kevin had his own plans, which came to light unexpectedly one day. It happened during a weekend, with the in-laws over at our house as usual. Ignoring me cleaning up the kitchen alone, Kevin suddenly spoke up while snacking on the coffee and cookies I had served. Your land is now my land. I already requested the construction. What? But that land is... My surprise was cut off by Madison's shrill voice interrupting. A wife who talks back to her husband is unwanted. All you need to say is understood and keep it at that. I didn't know what to say to Madison, looking victorious. That land was already leased to a corporation, with plans for an apartment building underway. The rent for the land was supposed to be deposited next month. I had made sure to inform Kevin about this. Madison, about that land. You just need to keep quiet. Understood? Every time I tried to tell the truth, Madison would shout over me. Finally, my anger erupted. Understood. While looking at my in-laws and my husband smiling with satisfaction, I cursed them in my mind. Just wait and see. I can't wait to see you come begging. I decided to do something I had been hesitating about for a long time. Renew my long-expired passport and get in touch with a friend living abroad. My friend was surprised when I told them about my plan, but they agreed to help. It was a bit tough to carefully proceed with the plan before Kevin found out about the land, but thinking about my bright future made it enjoyable. Just when everything was ready, Kevin received a call from the construction company about the land. One day, when he came back from work, he stood at the entrance, furious. You tricked me. With that one sentence, I knew exactly what he was talking about. Trying hard to keep my face from showing anything, I answered Kevin. What are you talking about? He seemed to really dislike my response. Shaking with anger, Kevin glared at me. It's about that land. I got a call from the construction company. They can't take our request because there's another building plan in motion. Is that so? I thought I told you. What? A wife is supposed to follow what her husband decides, right? Stop the apartment building project immediately. You said understood, didn't you? His selfish reasoning left me with nothing but a sigh, tired from work. Kevin, grabbing my collar and threatening me. Didn't scare me at all since everything was already prepared. There's nothing I can do. That place has already been leased out to a company. What? I told you, didn't I? The land is in my name, but the construction on it is under the company's name. It's a leasehold. I receive the land rent and don't get involved with the building. I explained this, but you didn't understand, did you? Kevin, failing to comprehend, let go of me and looked stunned. Facing him directly, I continued. So, let's get a divorce. What? Why would it come to that? Are you serious? Kevin finally seemed to realize I was quietly furious and started to panic. Seeing his pitiful state, I entered the house and moved to the living room. Kevin, following me and trying to gauge my mood, seemed smaller despite being bigger than me. Grace, I'll respect your plan this time, so please reconsider the divorce. Even now, Kevin's condescending tone made me look at him with contempt. He was completely intimidated by my gaze. Why should I need your respect for decisions about the land I inherited? What? Well, you seem to be misunderstanding something. That land is mine. I'm the one inherited the land. You have no right to dictate anything about it. Kevin was quiet for a while as he listened to me, but as soon as he heard he had no rights, he lashed out. Disrespecting your husband like that, who do you think is providing for you? Oh, since we split all living and housing expenses equally, I'm living on my own money. What? Did you not realize that? You really weren't interested, were you? I pulled out the household ledger and opened it to this month's page. Kevin contributed $1,000, and I also added $1,000, making $2,000 for living expenses. Plus, I pay the rent for our apartment and utilities from my account. Which means while saying it's a split, I'm paying more. As you can see, I can live on my own, and being with you just means I'm paying unnecessary money. That's a lie. But you've been using more than $2,000 for your allowance while only contributing $1,000 to the house since we got married. That's because Mom said that was enough. There it is, always Mom, Mom. So annoying, you mama's boy. Mama's boy. Kevin, taken aback by my words, looked incredulous. To anyone looking in, Kevin, who always discusses everything with his mom and expects her support as a matter of course, is a perfect example of a mama's boy. Yet, he seemed to have no self-awareness of this fact. Anyway, if you're going to continue living there, you'll need to start paying for it yourself. I've already changed the withdrawal account, so as of today, I'm leaving this place and won't pay anything. What do you mean you're leaving? Ignoring Kevin's words, I took the suitcase I had prepared earlier out of the closet and headed for the entrance. In fact, I had already moved out my belongings. I had been moving them out little by little without being noticed, and Kevin hadn't realized it at all. It was a bit sad to think he was that uninterested in me, but honestly, it worked out for the best. Kevin followed me to the entrance, watching me leave the house in a panic. In front of him, I took off my wedding ring and placed it on the shoe cabinet. Are you really leaving? You'll regret this. I'd regret more staying with you. What about my meals? Are you serious? Make them yourself. I was utterly astounded that Kevin was worried about his meals at a time like this. He looked utterly natural, expecting me to cater to him, but when I firmly responded, he was in shock and froze. Not wanting to look at Kevin's face even for a second longer, I left the house I had lived in for 15 years. I was busy with preparations for the next few days, running around for procedures and whatnot. Then I received a call from Madison. Reluctantly answering, I heard her shrill voice through the phone. What's this about the land being used for an apartment building? And divorcing Kevin after enduring 15 years when you could have left after 3 years without children, how ungrateful can you be? Madison, the apartment was already decided. The divorce from Kevin is due to a lack of trust, and the reason we didn't have children is that Kevin didn't cooperate with fertility treatments. That boy is healthy. Funny, so am I. Madison screamed in frustration over the phone, and I found her cartoonish yelling somewhat amusing. Anyway, I'll be seeking compensation from you for deceiving us and for making Kevin sad. Make sure you pay for what you've done. Enough with the Kevin. I'm giving Kevin back to you, so please enjoy each other's company forever. And the compensation should come from Kevin. I'll have my lawyer contact you, so don't run away. Please pass that message. You're the wife, how dare you talk like that? Madison kept screaming, but I hung up without caring. I was amazed at how much I could say once I had let go, and it felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. A month after leaving the house, it was finally time to discuss the divorce. The lawyer said the basic conditions were set, but Kevin wouldn't sign the divorce papers until he saw me. Reluctantly, we arranged to meet at a restaurant for the discussion. The in-laws stubbornly suggested their house, but I insisted on a private room in a restaurant. Meeting the in-laws and Kevin, their unnaturally cheerful faces made me suspect they were plotting something. Grace, it's been a while. Have you been well? Yes, thanks to you. As I responded, Madison approached with a sweet voice. Grace, I'm sorry for everything. Let's talk about the future today. That sounds good. I had a hunch about what the in-laws and Kevin were planning. Probably something like divorcing in exchange for a portion of the land rent. As expected, Madison mentioned the inheritance as soon as we sat down. Do you know the land value of that place? I'm aware. I was shocked. And you're also receiving a proper amount of money, right? We need to properly distribute the property. Madison's shallow words made me laugh out loud. Madison, initially stunned by my laughter, quickly turned red and glared at me. What's so funny? Madison, it seems you don't know. The inheritance I received doesn't become marital property. What? Madison let out a strange noise and widened her eyes. It seems she was blinded by the amount of money and didn't bother to check such basic things. So, we don't get anything? That's right. After my words, Madison let out a silent scream and slumped in defeat. From her outfit, it was clear she had planned to live lavishly off my inheritance. The fact that I could hear them worrying about payments was proof enough. Aren't you going to support your husband's home as his wife? John, who had been silent until now, spoke up, and I gave him a cold look. Then, without a word, I pressed a button on my mobile phone. John's crude remarks started playing back. John who says such things, Madison who goes along with it without stopping him, and a husband who turns a blind eye to it all. I don't need any of you. I will live my life. Do you think you can just do as you please? If necessary, we can take this to court. This will be submitted as evidence. If you do that, my reputation will. Well, it will be socially troublesome for you. John was left speechless, slumping just like Madison. With the noisy bystanders finally quiet, I turned to Kevin. Kevin, pale-faced, seemed to have an idea. I'll help manage the money since it'll be tough on you alone. You can do whatever you like with it. How about that? Why would I have to involve you in anything after the divorce? I already have someone to discuss the inheritance with. Come in. As I called out, a woman entered. Kevin looked at her in surprise. It's been a while, big brother. It turned out that Mia had connections with my overseas friend while I was planning things. My friend told me the in-laws favored Kevin, treating Mia harshly. Kevin accepted this treatment without protest, benefiting from the situation and even blaming Mia for his own actions. Kevin went to private schools, while Mia was only allowed to go to a public high school and received no financial help for college. Mia worked through college, becoming a freelance writer after graduation. Just as her career was taking off, the in-laws started asking for financial support, coinciding with my marriage to Kevin, which surprised me. Since then, Mia and I have been in touch. And now we have become close friends. Mia and I have hit it off, and she'll be helping me with the German language school I'm planning to start abroad. Abroad? What can you do overseas? Have you forgotten my job? I studied abroad for 2 years and speak German daily at work. I've always planned to go abroad if it weren't for our marriage. What about me? I don't speak German. Do you understand what divorce means? It means I'm stopping living life with you. Oh. Kevin finally grasped the situation, his face turning pale. I took the filled-out divorce papers from Kevin, who was now silent, and left the restaurant with Mia and my lawyer. I submitted the divorce papers to the office and moved abroad. My belongings were already at the new home, so I could start my new life without any issues. I'm room sharing with Mia, respecting each other's work. Mia is becoming a successful writer, working towards her dream of being a novelist. Seeing her work so hard on writing stories in her spare time from work, I feel like I need to try my best as well. Kevin stayed in our old apartment for a while, but had to leave due to lack of savings and the alimony payments. Back at the in-laws' house, he's consumed by their demands, left with no money and exhausted from taking over the chores Madison abandoned. The in-laws also might soon lose their home too without Mia's support. Drop dead. Mia simply said so, upon their pleas for help. As for me, I've opened my dream German language school, which is thriving. My students are enthusiastic, filled with hope for their future in Germany. Today, we'll learn about greetings. I stand at the podium with a smile, loving this confident version of myself, filled with hope for the future.